So we'll start lightning today. So this is the content which you can see. So first thing is what is lightning component or lightning component framework. So lightning component we use to build single page applications in Aura. And these are the event driven applications, means lightning Aura is follow the event driven architecture. We will be more focused on the components events here, and whenever you need to build the application we use. So there are certain advantages of using Aura components as well. Advantages like why we need lightning when we already have the classic. So we need lightning. Reason is lightning, as the name suggests, lightning it is faster, it is quick in response, we have responsive UI. So let me open Word. So what is lightning? Lightning is again a framework which we use to build lightweight applications or single page applications. Another is why lightning, why we need lightning or our components. So there are certain regions. It is faster in response. Another is responsive UI, user interface. Responsive user interface means the same application which we are building in Aura can run on mobile, laptop or desktop or tablet. Anywhere we can. If we have a layout system, grid and layout, when we build the application using those, that application is supported on each platform. This is like faster in response. So now let's understand why and how it is faster in response. We will compare because earlier we have VA pages. If we compare with respect to Aura, so how Aura is faster than your Salesforce classic part or VA pages. So let me draw something. See, require. Let's say let's understand with the requirement we need to display. Then account records. That's the ask, and we'll discuss it with respect to classic. So if we need to display 10 account records using our MVC architecture, so we need to create one VF page. You need to create one controller and model. Controller, your DB, database or model, and you'll make the request and get the response. So that was in classic. Now understand the same scenario in Aura. So what will be the difference in the structure? We'll create one Aura component. I'll tell you how to create Lightning Aura components similarly as we have created the VF pages. And whenever when we create any aura component, we get bundle. So in that bundle we get many things, like we will get the aura component file component, then we'll get the javascript controller, we'll get the helper, we'll get the render, we'll get svg icons. There are 8 things which we get, so we call it bundle. So bundle means like collection of different things, and in those different things we have our component, JS controller, helper, styles, SVG. There are two, three more. So total are 8. So that will be. Let me roast few more images. So there will be Aura component. There will be JS controller, JavaScript controller. There will be JS helper, again similar to the controller. JavaScript helper controller. There will be Apex class, Apex controller, and your DB or model. So this time we will be connecting our component with JS, JavaScript controller. Here we have the option, either directly we can approach our server side controller, or first we can approach our helper, then from helper we can approach our server side controller. And that the database call will be same from Apex to your DB. So here in case of Lightning, we have got two kinds of controllers. One is client side, another is server side. Let me take a snap. So here, see this. In case of classic, we have only one controller. So each time when you need to do any transaction, we need to hit our server side controller. Then server side controller will place the request from your uh, from Apex to database, and then database will send you the response. It will send the response to your Apex controller, server side controller, and server side controller will send the response to your UI VF page or view. Okay. Now understand the same in case of Lightning. From Aura, we will be connecting first with our JS controller, that is client side controller. So if you see this part, that is client side controller, means that will be on browser only. So that's a fact. When we hit our server, it will take time. When we hit our JS client side controller, it will take time, but it will take less time because that is already available. We are not getting the response from server. So in case of Lightning, what happens, we make the request from Aura to JS, and from JS either we can connect with helper. I'll tell you how to call the helper methods in JavaScript controller, JS controller, and from JS to server, and then server to database. Again process will be same. Your database will send the response to your Apex. If you have made the request from, let's say, JS controller, or JS helper. So it will be going to give the response to that particular model. Means either if you are hitting it from JS, you will get the response in JS. If you are hitting the server side controller from helper, it will give you the response in helper, and then directly that response will be displayed on, will come on here on Aura side. So if you need to display the account records, first you will make the write the code in Aura. You will call the JavaScript controller. If you want to use your helper, you can use. If do not, that's okay. You can make the server call inside server Apex class. You will be writing the query to get the data from database, and so database will be returning the response to your Apex will returning the response to the JavaScript controller, and you will be going to set that response back to the UI. So here if you see, we need to hit the server side controller only either when we need the data, we want to retrieve that, or when we want to insert that. Otherwise, let's say you want to do some calculations, you want to create some list set map, you want to iterate anything, you want to even apply sorting, you want to apply even searching or pagination, you can do everything at the client side. So when we will be doing many things on client side, our response time will be less. Means we get the response very quick, because 60, 70 to 80% things we are doing at the client side. Only when we need to get the retrieve the data from server, or we need to create the record, save the data, perform the TML, then only we need to hit the server side controller. That is the reason this Aura part or Lightning part is faster in response as compared to the classic.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So there are certain prerequisites. These were earlier because uh, prerequisites means like you need to have developer edition. If you are learning, you can use sandbox or even sandbox as well. Another thing, we need to create domain. We have concept of domain in Salesforce. So light for lighting applications, if you want to use, we need to create the domain here. Why domain? There is another advantage of domain is uh, when we use lighting applications, so this is the single page applications, means these are not URL based. Aura is not URL based. As we have page, if you want to move from one page to another page, we were creating the URLs and navigating to the different page. Single page means like single page application means like we will have one application. Under that we will be having different components where we can move from one component to another component, but there won't be any change in UI on URL. I mean, URL will be same. So here we need to make it more secure. So when we create the domain, means we can enable the security for login. So how we create the domain or how it is secure, let me show you. So here search for domain, my domain. So you can see this is my domain name, because nowadays when you create any developer or Salesforce automatically create the domain. But earlier when Lightning came to the picture, that time we have to create the domain. Otherwise we cannot, we couldn't run our component or application. See my domain, read this definition. My domain showcase your company's brand and keeps your data more secure. The domains that Salesforce hosts for your org include your company's specific my domain name. So here, if you see, I have added the company name, Grovia. That is also available here in URL. Do you see that? So means we are doing somehow company's branding as well. You name any company, Google, google.com, IBM, similarly Grovia. So when you are using Salesforce, you can brand your company as well. And you can restrict all users to log in with a particular URL. So right now, if you see, when we log in our developer org, we use login.salesforce.com. If we want to log in into the sandbox, we use test.salesforce.com for the sandbox. So either you need to log in your developer org, or in production we will be using login.salesforce.com. If you need to use login into the sandbox, we will be using test.salesforce.com. Let me save it. I'll tell you now how we can restrict it, how it adds security to our to our org. Authentication configuration you see here. So we don't need this login form. Okay, so here we go. Do you see login policy? Prevent login from login.salesforce.com. This applies to every login except SOAP API. So SOAP API is a different concept. But here, if I click here and I try to log in using login.salesforce.com, I won't be able to. Let me show you that first. Login.salesforce.com I have entered. I clicked here Ravi dot on my username. I'm able to log in. Correct. Now I'll show you the another part, but for that I have to keep this URL. Let me copy it and let me enable this. Okay. Again, I'll do the same. I'll click here. I think I have checked it. Login policy. The v dot ecolab. Now I'm not able to log in with the same credentials because I have restricted it. So, for example, it's again it's we are adding one layer of security because login.salesforce.com or test.salesforce.com are generic URLs to log in into the Salesforce. Means any hacker can try to log in, but when you have a specific URL, that means only the specific person will know. Only the specific users who are working with you in your organization will know about that URL. So let me try with the same URL which we have. And if I try to log in, I should be able to log in now. Now you can see I'm able to log in. Means no one can log in into this organization using the generic URL, which is login.salesforce.com, and for sandbox it will be test.salesforce.com. So let me again one more time let me show you this. Login.salesforce.com. I'm entering the same credentials. Login. No, I'm not able to log in. So this is how it adds the layer of security. Now I'll disable that login policy. So we already have the domain. Now we will create the component. We are good to create the components. So to create the component, open the developer console, setting, click on setting, and then developer console. So I'll create my first component. I will add that into the application to run it. So how to create lightning aura component? Click on file, new. We have here a lightning component. Click on lightning component. My first aura comp. Simple. Keep it very simple as of now. We'll add the complexity step by step. So if you need how to create aura component, for that open your dev console. Open your dev console. Click on file on left up corner. You'll see that file option, and then click on lightning component. You need to enter then enter your the component name and then submit. I did the same. Here I have got the component. So we can write the data, text, whatever we want. Here we can write that. So I'll create one div. Hello folks, welcome to lightning aura component sessions. I have added the customer static data here. Now if I need to display this, I need to create one application. I need to add this component into that application, then I can preview. So in via pages, we had that button here somewhere or here to preview, but in case of aura, we do not have. So we need to create the application, then we need to connect our component with that application to preview. So how to create the application? Click on file, new, lightning application. And I am giving the name my first app. Okay, so this is my application. If you see the difference between component and application is the root tag is aura application, and in case of component root tag is aura component, and in case of via pages it was root tag apex colon page. But here we do not have that, we because we are working on the component side. It is starting with aura, so means it is supported by the aura framework, this lightning. So everything is support thing is started with aura component or aura application. So how to connect your component with the application, or how to make the connection between both to display the data, to view the output? We have the syntax which starts with c colon your component name and closed. C basically represents the namespace. We have one concept of namespace. We can create that in our org. And if you have any namespace, either you can use that or C is the default namespace. If you still you have namespace and you do not want to use that, you can directly use C dot C colon component name. This is the component name. Done. I have got the preview option. If I click on this preview, I'll navigate to the different tab where I can see the output. You can see, hello folks, welcome to lightning aura component session. So we have one tag. So right now if you see the UI, it's not very like, it's coming even top, we are, it's not looking very good. Okay, so even in aura we have one concept, SLDS, Salesforce Lightning Design System. Means we have certain tags or a certain UI, basically certain UI tags which we can use to have the UI, because Lightning is also well known for the better UI. Extends equals to force colon SLDS. I have extended this UI. Now you will see the difference here. Let it load. Now the UI is changed. The color combination is changed. Similarly, we can create the header or footer in our component. So let's create the header. We will be going to use class SLDS dash page dash header lightning aura application. So I have like added another text. So to check the output, either you can directly refresh the URL or you can click on preview. So I have refreshed the URL. You can also click on the preview on application. So we have got this lightning or application. I haven't added that in the particular tag because if you see it, there is no difference in header and our body. Now refresh it, but this time I will refresh it from the application. Output will be in the same thing, like page will refresh and we get the header. So there will be one header, you can see that's the header. Now it's segregating it, and this is the body. Similarly, you can create the footer and you can use other tags.
This conference will now be recorded.
So how to interact with JS controller or JS helper from Aura component. So to interact with JS controller, we need to make a connection between both your Aura component and your JS file, JS controller. So what we will do, we will define a function where JavaScript is basically used to perform some certain logic, and we need to write the methods, functions, then we need to process those. So what we will do, we will create one function, one method in JavaScript, and then we will be going to call that JavaScript method from the UI, from our component file. So how to do that? Go to your org, go to the component, and here if you see that this is the bundle, you can say bundle version. So when we create any component, we will always get our component, we will get always get the controller, helper, style, documentation, renderer, design, and svg. So everything has their own context on usage. So we'll learn a couple of things step by step. So now let's talk about our GS controller. So when I'll click on this, it will open another component, another file, you can say, with some default structure. So let's see the magic. I have opened that. It's coming by default with some default method structure, function structure. Means how you can define the functions. So this my action is the function name. Colon function is a keyword, similar like when we create any class. So class is a keyword, then we give the class name. Here we give the function name first, then colon, then function. It will accept the three parameter. By default there are three parameters, and everything has their own mean. Component means like when we are going to interact with the component, and with between the component and the JS controller. So component will create the instance of that component or a component. Event, if you are using any event in your component in your JS controller, even let's say we have two different events here, component and application events. If you see you are using those, so this will provide reference to those. Helper means if you want to connect your JS controller with your helper. Means let's say you have one function in your helper controller. Helper is this. Let me open that. This is the helper method here. If I want to call this function, I will be going to use this reference helper dot function name to call the helper function. Okay, but now how I can call this function? You can keep either my name, so my action. You can put any function name. Let's say call first JS function. So call JS first JS function. This is my function. If I want to call it from UI, I have to use one, either here there can be anything, because we need to fire the event from UI and we need to call. So first approach is when let's say we are loading the component, we are loading the application, same time I want to call my JS function. So for that we have one default handler, that is aura handler. How we approach it? Aura handler name, it will have init. Value, it will have it has three attributes. And action are function name. C dot that function name, close it. So aura handler, that is a default event which we are going to handle. So when we are handling this event, it will ask us to provide three parameters. Name we have given in it, means when we are loading the component, the same time we want to initialize this in it, to initialize with respect to the current context, we have added the value and we are going to call this function. Let me save it. If everything is fine, it will save. Let's add something here to see whether we are actually able to call it or not. So either we can use console.log or we can use some alert. I'm adding the alert, calling JS function. So now the hierarchical structure will be, when I will load my application, it will render my component. It will see we are using one default handler, means this or a handler. It will check it which function you are going to call, you are making the call. It will go to your JS first and it will check here whether you have any function with that name or not. If you have the function, it will process it. If you do not have the function, it will give you the error. Okay, now see the positive side first. Now see the magic. You got the alert here, call JS function. Now let's reproduce some errors. I have given the name here function one. So it will again traverse to your JavaScript controller. It will try to find out, do we have any function with the name called JS function one or not. If we do not have, it will give the error. this page has an error, you might just need to refresh it, unable to find action, then action name means it's not able to find out that function. So right now we have even good readability of errors, but when lightning came into the picture, that moment we hadn't had the readability. We, let's say we got the error, we have to debug each and every line to fix that. But nowadays it's quite descriptive. You can easily identify with the error description as it's saying unable to find action, then action name. So simple, you can check it where you have given this function that is here, but when you check your JS, that is not here. Now let's say if we need to call our helper as well. So that's my helper class. Put some alert here, calling helper function. Use this, go to your JavaScript controller. Just after this, use helper dot function name. Refresh the application. If is there any error, we'll get the error and then we'll fix it. If no error, that means it's working fine. Calling JS function and calling helper function. So we are able to make the connection between your first was component to application. We have added our component to the application to see the output. Then we were able to call our JS function method, means from component when we are loading the component at the same time we are calling our JavaScript controller, and from JS we are calling the server side controller. So this is the flow to call.